Okay, guys, so I'm just checking the forecast before we head to the lake. And according to Windfinder, we have gusts of up to 46 knots today, and I want to go foiling. So I've been foiling now for about 4 or 5 years, I don't know exactly, and I feel especially in the last 2 years I've made big improvements to my foiling, especially last year when actually receiving some foiling sails, whereas before I was always using slalom sails. I think I made the biggest step, and I feel so much more comfortable in big winds now to keep the foil level and not have so much movement in the system, and that way I can handle much more wind. This summer I've had 2 really high wind sessions. The first one was in La Palma, where I usually go speed surfing. It was a lighter day, so we had gusts of 30 up to 35 knots. And I managed to go, I think, 31 knots there, which was pretty good. And I felt somewhat stable there on the 5/8. And then the next day, or like a couple of days later, when I was back at home at the Möhnesee, I went out on the lake and I actually beat my speed there. It was also 30, 35 knots. But somehow I was really tuned into the gear because I was foiling a lot back then. And I hit 32.8 knots top speed. So today for the storm, I was thinking, why not try to see what my limits are in foiling? And I've sailed up to, I think, like 30 to 35 knots with foil before, but I've never sailed in over 40 knots gusts. So that's completely new to me. I don't have a sail for it, but I think Mario has a foiling sail of 4/8. And I'm going to borrow that one because he's going on the fin. So I will see if with that small of a foiling sail, it's actually possible to handle the 40 knots plus gusts on the lake. So let's head over there and check it out. Guys, it's gusting 45 knots and I'm heading out on the foil, which I think is a really stupid idea, so let's do it. I just got back with the foil and it's impossible to sail. If you saw the run, I'm completely with my ass out and nothing is working. So yeah, I don't know. Oh, there's Mario. And yeah, it's not working at all, so I'm gonna try Mario's gear now when he comes in and see how it goes with the fin. Yeah, as you can see, even with the fin it was quite tricky to keep the control now, and the local weather station actually measured gusts of up to 46 knots, so it was properly windy. But getting back to my starting question of the video, is it possible for me to foil in 40 knots plus and keep control? Well, I have to say both yes and no. On the one hand, it was possible to just go and not crash and not die on the foil out there. But on the other hand, it was so super hard to keep any control while going, and I think there's two main reasons for that, why it's so hard for me to keep the control. And the first reason is that just the difference in wind between the gusts and the lulls is just huge, especially on an inland lake when a storm hits, because you have base winds of like 20 knots and then you have gusts of up to 45 knots. So you have like 45 knots difference in the wind that hits you within like a few milliseconds, and then you have to adjust. And this is really, really tricky. So I was fighting the whole time to keep the foil in the water but not let the board touch the water, and that just required all of my attention. That's why I was not able to push any speeds, because I just didn't have the control. And the faster you go, of course, with the foil, the more it becomes a problem to keep the foil in the water on a balanced level. But I also think that the trim of the foil and the whole gear in general makes a huge difference. And I was feeling that as I had the usual trim that I always take when I go in like 10, 15, 20 knots, that I had way too much lift on the foil. And what does that is the angle of attack between the front wing and the back wing. And I think that one was too high. I should have put some shims under the back wing to decrease the angle of attack. And what that does, it gives you less lift, because I was fighting the whole time against the lift from the foil. I was even using a 400 front wing, so quite a small front wing, but with a big angle of attack that I probably had in the foil and not checking it before, it was just a fight to keep the foil down. And I think with better trim there and the more neutral setting in the foil, it would have been much easier to keep the control. Because the problem was actually not that the sail felt too big. The sail actually felt perfect, the 4.8. It was not overpowered. It was just that the whole system had so much instability of going up and down because of the wind gust and the trim that it was not possible for me to control it. So yeah, then I switched to the fin, and I have to say, fin windsurfing with small slalom gear in a storm like this is still my favorite. Just so much fun. Towards the end we had the 40 plus knots, and then it was really also a struggle to keep control over the gear, especially since I was using Mario's gear and he has a little bit different settings from me. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun to just go on the fin after foiling, and I have to say, in these conditions, for me, just the fin still rules. But I also just want to kind of do this foiling in high wind from time to time to just, you know, stay up to date, because the whole industry is moving towards foil. So it's good, I think, also to test my limits there, and for sure I will continue it. I have already ordered some new gear for next season, and then I'm going to try to step it up in the bigger winds and to actually go in like maybe 40 knots, but actually with control. And yeah, to me it's really crazy that like just 2 years ago I was really struggling to go in 20 knots and it felt like so much wind, and now in 20 knots I feel so stable. So I'm thinking, like, will it be the same like in 2 years? Will 40 knots actually feel kind of nice? If I look at the World Cup in Fuerteventura, 40 knots is also kind of where you saw a lot of crashes from also the pros, but they are of course actually pushing like 34 knots or something like this on the course, whereas I was going 28. So that makes a big difference as well if you fully push, which I didn't do, so that's why I also didn't crash. But yeah, let's see where the sport is heading in the next few years and how competitive the foiling gear is getting in 40 knots plus. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and took something away from it. Thanks to my Patreons as well and all my sponsors, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye.